Welcome to the Hastings Shadmary Show.
I'm Andee Hastings.
And I'm Mali Shadmary.
Together, we own Hastings Shadmary, an Atlanta-based law firm specializing in family law.
This is a space where we talk all things family law and all topics that touch the area of family law, from divorce to custody to self-growth, personal empowerment, and more. We bring you the truth, from our wolf pack to yours. Hello, everybody. We are so happy to be here. And I'm going to kick us off with the question everybody wants to know. Andee Hastings, are you a warrior or are you a diplomat today?
Today, I would say I'm a diplomat.
Okay. Why is that?
I wanted to look and see what your face did when I said that. Are you buying that?
Kind of.
Actually, it's because we have had a very difficult case that has been, everything that could be hard has been harder. And we settled it the other day.
Go girls. That's it. You, Stephanie litigation team, y'all just shut that down, huh?
We did.
Yeah, that was after months of battling.
Well,
years, but then heavy duty months of negotiating.
Right. And we were supposed to have a hearing today. So the other side was also very incentivized to want to get it resolved before today. So
excellent. Great results for Hastings Shadmary. Love it.
How about you? Are you feeling like a warrior or a diplomat today?
I'm a warrior. No hesitation.
I mean, when I said it, I was almost being a little, rhetorical.
Look, I can't turn it off. I have been so hard on myself lately, and I don't know why. I've had great results in cases lately, happy clients, good times in court, but I just have a warrior mentality. I think I've been really focused lately on my goals and sticking to the program because I know the goals I want to achieve, and it goes for the firm and for my personal stuff. Mm-hmm. And for me to accomplish all the things I've got going on in my head, it's warrior mode all the time.
I want to tell them something about you.
Okay.
That I don't think people understand.
Oh, no.
And you touched on it a second ago, just barely.
Oh, I'm scared.
No, don't be. So this one right here, whom I love dearly, is probably harder on herself than anybody I've ever known. She never gives herself a break. If she feels like she needs to slow down, even for a minute, sometimes I have to talk her into that because she will talk herself out of it. She will fight, go for our clients, their children, our people, me, and sometimes Mali Shadmary has to be given permission, which I know is very hard to believe, to just take a breath.
Yes.
And so that's I think one of the magical pieces of our relationship, because one of my missions in life is to help you find that balance so that you don't sacrifice yourself all the time for everyone around you.
Gonna make me cry.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to do that.
No, Andee's so right. And it is a magical, beautiful part of our partnership and a staple kind of fundamental philosophy I think that we both have in running a business, supporting each other and our employees and understanding what makes them tick. And Andee is a master at that, and amongst many other things. And Andee's right. For me in particular, and this is after years of studying me and vice versa, she knows what I need. She can anticipate what I need before I even articulate it sometimes. And that's after years of practice together and always working on evolving. I feel like we identify even problems in the business, the relationship, whatever it is, and we work through it together. And we always go up a level together when we do that. And Andee does say to me, and it is like a breath of fresh air. She knows when I'm so pent up. You can see it. I even walking around like a turtle. Like everything's just tight. Like, and she's like, you can take a breath. You can take a break. And for really talented, especially trial attorneys, and we are experiencing that with the high performers that we have here, that we have to promote and foster, hey, take a break. You're going to come back stronger. It's like being in the gym. You need a couple rest days. You're going to overtrain. Get it together. Your brain is a muscle as well. Your spirit is as well. Everything needs to breathe. And for some of us, it's easier said than done. Andee also, we can both be workaholics, and Andee has her own things. And I enjoy getting to jump in. And a lot of times, my first instinct when Andee's in stressed mode is to swoop in and be right by her side and say, let me do the stressful thing. Let me do it.
She's in there like throwing elbows if
Yeah.
I'm stressed.
And comic relief. And we look at each other sometimes and we're like, what is our job? Like, how is this our job?
How is this our lives?
Oh my God. Okay. So I'm going to Miami tomorrow.
I cannot wait. And this is a
excited.
perfect example of, I don't know how many times this week alone you've said, gosh, I wish I wasn't going because I feel like there's so much that I have to do.
Yes.
And you're going to have the best time, and you need that. And you're entitled to that. Everybody needs a break.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, I am excited. It just made my hands sweat thinking about it because I am like, oh, okay. I don't like stepping away from work for that long, but it's going to be so much fun. It's with one of my best friends.
2 days.
It's 2 days, and we're flying out Thursday morning, coming back Sunday. I am not kidding you. I'm like a little kid on the first day of school. Every day this week I've texted my girlfriend, and I'm like, I wish I were wearing my Miami clothes to work today because I got like some little cute outfits. I wanted to wear it for y'all today, but we went profesh.
I want to know what your Miami outfits are.
Oh, God.
I'm kind of stuck on that.
Okay. It's like there's this little cute 2-piece pink set, a black and white one. There's some scandalous dresses, some high heels, bikinis, doy.
Mali, I know we've got to talk about work before you go on vacation, but do you mind sharing some thoughts that you have about the mediation process? We get a lot of clients who come in and they're nervous about it. They don't know how it works, how we get there, why we get there, what makes it successful. Do you mind sharing some of your knowledge?
One of the first things I always start with when I'm explaining this to a client is that mediation is not what you picture on TV. It's not you sit at a table with the other side, you know, your ex and their lawyer sitting across from you and y'all are yelling at each other. No. It is you and your lawyer in one room. The mediator is a neutral third party, usually a lawyer, doesn't have to be. They go back and forth between rooms. The other side has their own room. And the mediator goes back and forth to hear both sides. They're not there to be a judge. They're a neutral. Their job is to try to bring the parties to a conclusion, make them meet in the middle. And we always tell people, if you leave feeling like you lost something, you're probably actually winning. Like everybody usually feels like they're losing. You have to give. That's negotiating. If you don't negotiate for a living, it can be a bit of a shock when you're in a divorce mediation because in my experience, my clients are like, hey, these are all the things we want to get. And if we don't leave with every single one of those things, it's a bit disappointing. And I always warn our clients about that. I say, look, these are the things we're going to ask for in mediation. Be prepared because bottom line, even though we're going to ask for these things, we could get less and whatever. And I try to warn them and I say, be ready. The other side's going to make an offer. And especially that first offer we're going to get from the other side that day, it's going to sting. It's going to hurt. It's going to be like, are you kidding me? Mali, I'm ready to leave now. We're wasting my money. I tell them, expect it. And I explain that mediation is a roller coaster. It's good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, until we reach a conclusion. Hopefully you're feeling more confident. It's grueling for clients. They usually go all day. It's not going to feel perfect at all times. Mali told you that. Roll with it. Your lawyer's there. Your lawyer's going to tell you when is it time to be done. That's why developing trust with your lawyer ahead of time and preparing properly with your lawyer ahead of time is so important so that when you have that day, you're there to focus and you got your armor on.
We prepare a lot for mediation. And even if it doesn't settle at mediation, that preparation, working through the strategies, making sure the balance sheet is tight, all of those things are going to help us. They're going to help us either resolve it or they're going to help us if we end up having to go to court. Some lawyers, just because it's a mediation, some lawyers will just show up and think, I'll just kind of wing it as I go, and I'll look at my notes as I go, and I'll refresh my memory as I go. And I'll be honest with you, my experience has been that a prepared lawyer runs circles around one that's not prepared.
And that goes to some of our core values at this firm, unequivocal excellence. And oh my gosh, I love it when people are out there just making the offer that's right there in front of their face. And we've prepared so much that we're 3 steps ahead. And I'm like, perfect. Yes, we will agree to that. You don't even know what you just signed up for because that sets us up to get this, that, and the other. The preparation does matter. You can't just show up and wing that. You've got a complex case. It's something that really needs to be thought through. Let me ask you this, Andee. Is mediation required?
It depends.
Okay.
So, certain jurisdictions, certain counties, certain judges will require you to attend mediation before you can have a hearing. Judges generally want to see that we've made every reasonable effort to try to resolve the case amongst ourselves before we end up having a trial. There are circumstances that don't lend themselves to having a mediation before getting into court. If we have an emergency issue, if there are potential violence issues, those sorts of things. I mean, there are ways that we can argue to the court that we need to waive mediation in order to get before the court immediately. But generally speaking, we need to mediate every single case, and judges expect it.
Agreed. I think there's so much, I think mediation is very important. I think you should go to mediation. I prefer trial over mediation. I do. It's where I'm supposed to be is in the courtroom. But we mediate a lot, and we're required to, and I take it very seriously, and you are expected to mediate in good faith. But yeah, I think that most cases do settle at mediation.
They do, and for sometimes we have clients that don't want to mediate. They know how difficult the other party is.
Yep.
They don't feel confident that anything's going to come of it. So what I tell clients is, first of all, they're often surprised, which is good, and that the key is having a good mediator, which we'll talk about in a second. But also, mediation is an opportunity. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, the other side is not going to come to an agreement. You can gather a lot of information about the other side's arguments, their positions, how they view certain pieces of evidence and information, what they find important. And in all honesty, in the art of war, that's valuable. That's what you need.
Very.
So we come into it, we think about it ahead of time, what's important to us, what we think is important to the other side. We try to make our offers sort of surround that so they feel like they're getting something that they want. Meanwhile, we're taking exactly what we want. So there's a lot of strategy involved in it. Goes back to playing chess, not checkers. And so never underestimate the value of mediation, even if you don't believe that the other side will ever reach an agreement with you.
Yes, and Andee had mentioned the mediator choice and how important that is. And when we pick a mediator, so typically your lawyers, the two lawyers going against each other, are going to pick a mediator, and they're going to ultimately agree on one. And a lot of times we throw a lot of names back and forth several times, and no, I don't want to pick them. And typically in family law in Atlanta, where we are, it's a small circle. We know who's quality and who might not be, and who would be a good fit for the personalities in the case, who knows the judge. Because I always say trial attorneys make the best settlement attorneys. They're the ones that know the landscape in the courtroom. They're the ones to know how hard to push which issue. And there are a lot of nuances. When you have a specific judge, your lawyer needs to try to understand what would that judge probably do in court based on what we know. Therefore, what are our parameters for settlement, and what's the cost-benefit analysis? So you want a mediator that knows what they're doing. It doesn't have to be a lawyer. There are some fabulous non-lawyer mediators. And what you care about is what is their experience level in handling, for example, high asset divorce, and can they work with a really complex balance sheet, with a very diversified financial portfolio, and those sorts of things. Can they speak the language? Great mediators help bring very creative answers to the table that perhaps both lawyers hadn't even thought of. So I look for that in a mediator. I look for mediators that are going to support the emotional place that my client's in. Mediation is scary, and that's okay. You're allowed to be nervous that day. One of the most common questions that I get is, what do I wear? And what does that day really look like? You wear what's comfortable. That's not a judge. It's your day. You have a voice. Your lawyer should be speaking for you, but you get to participate. And by the way, everything that is said in mediation to the mediator can be shared with the other side unless your lawyer says no to the mediator. Your lawyer needs to be listening. Do we want to share this information or not? They can go tell the other side. So I always teach our clients about that too. Also, I prefer a Zoom mediation. So a lot of times we're doing Zoom mediations, which we started during COVID, and it's just kind of stuck. I have heard some judges say, COVID's over and I want y'all mediating in person. I have heard that. I personally prefer Zoom. I think it's more efficient that way. But we have plenty of clients that, like, even if we're doing it on Zoom, they come into our office, stay in the office, we get them set up on their computer, we're on ours, we'll feed them. And I typically tell my clients, look, expect from about 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. We're going to mediate. It's a long day. I am a proponent of keep it within office hours if you can. I think that my clients get emotionally exhausted. And that's why I am very adamant. I'm like, you will sleep 8 hours the night before your mediation. Come in here rested. We've prepared. I've told you the good, bad, the ugly. I've told you what your worst day looks like. Get your rest. Come in with a clear mind. Eat right. Move your feet around. Get some movement in that morning. Come in here rested. We'll feed you during the day. If your lawyer doesn't do that, you need to eat. Take care of yourself. You have to make smart decisions. This is a negotiation that could impact you and your children for the rest of your life. So to come with a clear mind is going to help you understand things better. And if I know a mediation's looking good by the end of the day, I'll go later than 5. But if it's not and my client's wavering and we're not understanding things and the emotions are too heavy, it's not a good day to reach an agreement. And that's okay. You're not forced to reach an agreement. And I have had clients get very nervous about that and get to the end of the day and say, I can't do this. I need to think about this overnight. And that's okay.
That is okay. And sometimes, depending on the complexity of the case, we might reconvene on another day. We might go as far as we can, get as far as we can, and come back with fresh eyes and a fresh mind. And so, you know, some people feel like they just have to push through because they just have to finish, and that's not necessarily the case. But your lawyer will know how to navigate that, because the last thing that we want is for our clients to just make an agreement to be done that day.
Oh, yeah.
That's the worst case scenario, because that is a recipe for being very unhappy with the result later. And that's the last thing we want. Our job is to tell you what are the risks involved, what is your likelihood of getting this or that in court, and, you know, push as hard for you in every way that we can as possible. And that gets exhausting. Mm-hmm. That can be really tiring. So, you know, we're here to protect our clients, and, you know, it's a challenging process. But if you're with the right attorney, then they make it as smooth as possible for you, I feel.
Yes, agreed. One of the most common kind of conundrums we find ourselves in is, all right, this mediation's required before I can get a temporary hearing, and I don't have the grounds for an emergency hearing. My lawyer's saying we're not going to get in on an emergency. I don't know anything about our financials. I don't have enough information to even go to mediation. I mean, Forsyth County, for instance, says go to mediation within 90 days of the other side being served. So if you're supposed to mediate, you know, within a few months and you don't know information or you don't have money, you're worried about paying your lawyer. Andee, I know that's a hard question, but generally, what are some options there?
Well, one of the things we do is we serve discovery fairly early on, especially if we've got the party who is less familiar with finances. Mm-hmm. And there are relationships, we all know, where one party controls the finances and the other party doesn't, and they may not have very much visibility. So in a situation like that, we're going to serve discovery requests very quickly so that we can get information back in enough time to be ready to either mediate or have a temporary hearing if that's what's necessary.
And good lawyers and quality lawyers, they know that you got to give some financials to get to mediation. So if I'm in a situation where mediation's got to happen, I have no problem reaching out to their lawyer and say, look, this is going to be a good faith negotiation. I need you to give me X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. We'll do formal discovery. I'll send subpoenas out, but that takes time to get back in. If you want to get to the finish line, and by the way, if you're the breadwinner, it's usually this person that does have the knowledge of the finances, and you don't want long drawn out litigation and be wasting funds on litigation, you need to put together your financials and hand it over to your lawyer and say, give that to the other side, so that you give them no more reason to keep dragging this out. But it's just something to think about.
Right.
To get to the finish line, truthfully share your financials and be done. That way lawyers can get what they need. So talk to us about, what does preparation from the client's perspective, what does preparation for mediation look like with your lawyer? What do we do?
Well, obviously, we make sure that we have all the financial information that we need to reasonably analyze any proposals from the other side. You know, we have to make sure that we have things like appraisals. If there's a dispute with regards to the value of a house, we need the most current statements.
Yes, because if we go to mediation and we have gone to Zillow and whatever else and we don't have appraisals, we will waste so much time and money at mediation arguing over how much this asset's worth. okay? Rather than if we've got concrete appraisals, and you could even have competing appraisals, it's best to do a joint one so that there's less arguing. But you could even have competing, and it'd be better than arguing about Zillow and everything else, because you can come to an agreement on how to differentiate between the two appraisals. But that's a huge one that I've had hold up my mediations and ultimately hold up settlement that could have happened had the legwork been done from the rip and said, let we come to the table with a document. Let's not argue today. The information's here. Sorry, I interrupted your train of thought.
No, that's perfectly fine, and I completely agree. So we gather that. We gather the most recent financial statements, and we come up with a strategy. If there's custody issues, you know, a lot of times we want to find out, first of all, what our client is seeking. If they were just drawing a picture of what they want it to look like, what does that look like? We will meet ahead of time. We'll talk through it. We'll talk about risks, try to anticipate what the other side is going to propose, whether it's custody or financials. You know, try to get an insight into what's important to the other party, because that's where your power comes in a negotiation, is if you can speak to them in a language that they understand, you could end up giving them something that you don't care about in order to get something that is the only thing you want. So we strategize all of that, and we prepare all the important documents that we absolutely need for mediation. We have that all pulled together. Sometimes we'll draft the proposed settlement documents that we can be working through the day of mediation as we're negotiating and getting closer and closer, so that we can come away with an agreement that day, like a full agreement. And again, even if you don't settle at mediation, that preparation is valuable, because you're going to have to do that if you go to court. You're going to have those statements. You're going to have that appraisal. You're going to have an understanding of what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses in your case and the other side's case. So, you know, that's all valuable no matter what.
I think my best mediations happen in cases where my client and I have built a relationship to where they really do trust me. We've done a preparation meeting together where we've talked good, bad, ugly. Here's what in our worst day, what you could expect. So now that you know what's the worst, breathe. You could probably live with that, but we're not going to get you that. And just let's relax into just pushing for what we want. I definitely feel like I've had clients that have unrealistic expectations at mediation. What's important is that you have to remember your attorney is here to bridge the gap between emotion and business. That's what a good family lawyer does. And mediation is where you're really going to feel that. And we're going to say, look, dude, it is not worth it to keep arguing over this amount of money. It'll cost you this to go to court. This is what we feel like will happen in court. And that's where the courtroom experience and the family law experience really comes into play, where you can feel like you're in safe hands, so that the family law attorney can do this cost-benefit analysis with you and bridge that gap, because you're going to be the emotional one that day, and that's normal, and that's okay. Let the lawyer be the business one. We bridge that gap while being able to finesse your emotion too and validate you, make you feel good. I love that part of our job.
I do too.
And at the conclusion of your mediation, you could leave with a full agreement. That's the ultimate. And we like to go drafting with drafted full agreements ready to go that could just be tweaked throughout the day, so that at the end of the day, the parties sign it and it gets filed with the court, and your divorce could be finalized on paper after that. That's beautiful. That's best case scenario. A lot of times we do what's called a mediated agreement. That's kind of option 2, meaning we didn't have enough time that day and you don't want to pay 2 lawyers, sometimes more, plus a mediator to sit there and argue over so many red lines and commas and whatever. We would reach a mediated agreement, which is kind of an abbreviated format, but it's fully binding as soon as signed. Agreement. We reach the agreement, then it gets rendered later into the full agreement, giving the lawyers a week or 2 to finalize all of the wording. It just depends on how complex the agreements really are. And then option 3, other than, if you want to come back for a second mediation later and try it again, the last end all be all is if you don't settle at mediation, you're going to trial. And you would have talked about that well in advance of mediation. And like Andee said earlier, mediation is an excellent time to gather information about what the other side's stances are for trial. And we use it as, just fact gathering if we can. And, that's kind of the end of the road. And yes, you can settle before trial. A lot of people do. That happens all the time. You mediate, it fails, trial date, you've prepared for mediation. Somebody gets scared right before trial, and it settles.
Well, Mali, I think this has been I love
Fun.
hearing I always love hearing her approach to everything. I think
Same
it's,
to you, Andy Hastings. It is a gift to get to learn this knowledge that's in this woman's head.
well, we can talk about this all day.
Yes.
So maybe we'll come back for another one to talk
Yes.
about more specifics about mediation.
And we'll bring a mediator for you guys to get to talk to as well. That would be really fun.
I'm a mediator.
Oh, Lordy, I could not do it. I could not do that. I'd be like, what? You're stupid. Agree to this. Oh my God.
You don't give yourself enough credit.
Woo! Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Find us online, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Don't laugh too hard at the weird stuff we post. At Hastings Shadmary. Find us everywhere. Listen to us. Watch us online. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
See you next